Peter, you put your hand down, but I'm afraid it's your bit next. I was looking, it's got a helpful timetable down the side of this agenda, and it says you've got 10 minutes, and then it follows by the chair's report, and I haven't got any time at all. So over to you.
I think I'm supposed to be starting at 10:20 as well, so that 10 minutes has already been encroached upon. So I shall brevity will be the word of the day on this. So just three things I'd like to mention, if that's okay. So obviously, the stark reality of COVID-19 very much upon North Staffordshire, and particularly Stoke-on-Trent, the prevalence within the community is very significant at the moment, and that's been emulated and impacting on all local providers, UHNM obviously, but also ourselves. So the sort of the historical impact, and I say historical, I suppose that's a bit of an exaggeration, but the impact of COVID over the last 6 months on Combined has been a little more stealthy, I suppose, in some regards, in that a quieter level of impact, albeit significant, whereas right here, right now, the impact is more severe than we've ever seen, particularly on our wards. So we are on a daily basis ensuring that we operate in a safe and effective way, particularly across those acute wards on our Harpland site. So we are managing the situation effectively. At the same time, we do have a high level of prevalence in the community, in the hospital itself, and staff absence is unfortunately also being impacted, as you would imagine, by that community prevalence. So it is pressurised. I don't think I'm telling anybody anything new, but it is pressurised. But I am assured, with all that work that we're doing, whether it be work within the hospital, work within our community services to prevent admission where we can in an appropriate way, and of course the health and wellbeing support that we're providing to our staff day in, day out, to make sure that we collectively get through this in an effective manner. Lockdown, of course, came back to us last week, and I provided a brief video note to staff to reassure really that we were doing what we need to do to manage the situation. But Jonathan also helpfully provided one of his regular COVID bulletins to all staff, which provided detail. I mean, that's the route that we use to ensure that the right detail is provided at the right level to the right people. And so, as I say, that was a really helpful injection of advice, guidance and reassurance later on during last week. So I am confident that we are managing effectively, but the pressure is absolutely on us right now. Two other brief points. So firstly, you will see within the document, and as Chris mentioned at the beginning, I'm delighted to say that our strategy launch is upon us. So we will, in a week's time, on the 19th of November at 4:30, be doing the official launch to all of our stakeholders and staff internally of our refreshed strategy, which is in itself fantastic, that moment in time, but it will be supported by a lot of detail in stakeholder engagement terms, both internally and externally, over the weeks that follow. So I'm really excited by the prospect of being able to communicate what our strategy means to each and every one of those stakeholders over coming days and weeks. And the last thing I'd like to touch on is the staff survey, which is mentioned in my report. We have a little bit of time, but not a lot of time left, to ensure that as many people as possible within the organisation complete the staff survey. I completely understand that under current circumstances, it is hard to find time to do something like complete a survey, but the staff surveys, I would argue, the most important gathering of information in the calendar year for Combined, to both present and describe all of the good stuff, of course, that we're doing out there, but of course also ensure that we can understand and improve those areas that do require improvement. So please, it's a plea, as it's the public board meeting, it's a plea to all of our staff to ensure that if you haven't yet, please do complete that staff survey if you've been requested to. I think I shall leave it there. Given the time, David, I shall leave it there, but open it up to questions or comments if that's okay.
Brilliant, succinct. The only thing I was going to say in terms of a chair's report that we haven't touched on yet is that the system, the ICS to be, has got a new leader, a new independent chair. So Sir Neil has gone off into the sunset. No, the sunrise. He's doing some work in Saudi, I think. His place has been taken from the beginning of this week by a chap called Prem Singh, who is out of Derbyshire, but a lovely person, an easy person to get on with, but a person who's absolutely clear cut about what he wants to try and achieve. A good combination, and what I've seen of him so far is all absolutely positive. Had a session with us, with the chairs, a couple of nights ago, and said, look, you know, I'm not getting into all this political stuff about appointing people and preferring people. We're not going to do that. We need everybody we've got. Let's get on with some practical things and forget about governance for a few minutes. And I thought, well, that's a good start. And then he said, and I want some doctors on here. I don't want commissioners, I want doctors. You know, I, for one, came out of that session feeling with warm thoughts about the guy. But there we go. Just to say that at ICS level, life is complicated for various reasons, but there seems to be a growing expectation that the ICS, the approach to putting together an ICS and its responsibilities will be announced and supported by legislation. I almost said litigation. Legislation sooner rather than later. This is not something that's been pushed back much further. The messages we're getting are that could be really quite quick, but that ICPs are where it's at when it comes to place-based care. And if you want an avenue for pulling things together for NHS purposes up to the higher echelons of the organisation, then your ICS is very much the vehicle for doing that. If you want to be accountable to your communities, then the ICP is probably the vehicle for doing that. With the local authorities, with the voluntary sector, with everybody, you know, the police, everybody involved in that process. So that's just a very quick couple of words about that. We've got one question, just one question. So shall we move on to that? It's from someone called Barbara Colcliffe. And it runs, why were combined health employees who ran the mental health support groups at Bethel and other venues transferred to Stoke-on-Trent Council? And how long can these groups continue with the council? I think, Jonathan, you're probably amongst the executive team nearer to this situation than anybody else. Do you want to give your view of life in this area?
Yes, David. I know about the Bethel group. If it's the same one that I've previously been in contact with, we provided some support to them, I believe about a year ago, because they were changing the venue they used for their group to meet. And it's the Bethel group, for those who don't know, I think it's, from my recollection, it's very much a social support group that meets at the Bethel Church, I think. So whilst we previously had the Section 75 agreement in place with Stoke City Council to support this group, and and provide the relevant links into our community teams, the staff, social care staff who provide that support have transferred back into the local authority from those community teams now. There were no changes planned to any support for the services, as we know when we transferred services back in July, and any changes to services were going to be discussed widely, both with service users and with ourselves, prior to any changes being made. So I'm afraid I don't know of any changes that are planned to be made to this group. But what we can certainly do is support Barbara, who's the member of public who's raised the question. We can support her to get in touch with the right person in the council, because we have really good links with them, as we've just discussed. And we will happily, facilitate making sure she gets to the right person, is able to ask the questions, and hopefully gets an answer from them. But at the moment, it's not something that we would continue to be involved in.
Okay, thank you. I hope that's an adequate answer, but there are mechanisms by which, Barbara, you can come back at us, and we will do our best to help you find out exactly where things are and where things are going. Okay.
Why don't I take it as an action from the open board, David, if I can, to actually liaise with the Stoke Directorate, liaise with Barbara, and then I can bring back an answer for assurance that that loop has been closed and that the appropriate people have been contacted next time, and just for that assurance.
That's grateful. Joan, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, David and Jonathan. No, I just wondered if it's just worthwhile, Jonathan, you're spelling out the contractual arrangement so that there's kind of clarity about that in terms of the question.
Yes, of course, Joan. So previously we received, I forget the exact amount now, I believe it's about £2.6 million from Stoke City Council to provide social care and deliver social care statutory functions on their behalf. That agreement was in place for around 10 years, and that agreement ended in July 2020. So it is very recent, and the staff and budget, that full budget, and the staff have gone back into the council to provide those services and that support directly themselves. So the trust is no longer has any statutory responsibilities for providing social care on behalf of the Stoke City Council.
Okay. If I may, can we move on to what might be described as the regular work of this board,